Today, we're slicing up brownies and supporting the shifting needs of our bodies with private chef to the stars, Ariane Resnick, CNC, on Cooking with Pride. The kitchen has always been a place for people to come together and share their stories. I've invited a few of my favorite food friends from the LGBTQIA community to share their stories about cooking, connecting in the kitchen, and creating recipes that inspire others. This is Cooking with Pride. I mean, I feel like we have some really beautiful avocados that we're working with here.
I know. Each one I've opened, I've been shocked and surprised delightfully.
What are we doing with these avocados?
We are using these avocados to make brownies. It's not super different than a normal brownie recipe, and typically people think that the avocados would be in place of the butter or the fat because they're fatty, but they're actually working in place of the flour as the bulking agent.
Oh.
It's the recipe I grew up with. My mom ran a co-op out of our basement.
Wow.
And made, she bought wheat berries that she ground into flour to make our bread.
Oh my God.
So that is how I learned to cook, was just by the osmosis growing up that way.
Oh my gosh, what was it like having a co-op in your basement?
Lots and lots of large containers, like 50-pound jars of everything, where I didn't even know that that's not the normal way things came. Mm-hmm. It definitely had its benefits, like learning how to make things really from scratch, but then on the other side, it was a little separated from the world.
Yeah, I also feel like maybe now, more people are familiar with ingredients like that, but
for
I feel
sure.
like it wasn't that long ago where it would have been like, wheat berries, what?
Yeah, exactly. We were taking probiotics in the 80s when no one had ever heard of such a thing. And I think my parents stopped eating meat when I was 8. And then when I was 20 or so, they decided they were wrong and really carbs were the devil, not meat. So they started with the alternative flours and things probably 20 years ago.
Wow.
Ahead of the trend. The reason we add the eggs to the avocados specifically is just so that they blend well.
Okay.
So we're just gonna process these until they're smooth. And you do want it to be pretty smooth because chunks of avocado in your brownie would be weird and not ideal.
Yeah.
These are something that I feed to people without ever having to let them know. It's the main point of what I do when I do special diet work, is that it's just enjoyable. Nobody has to know they're eating something that's better for them than the average, or they're not getting the ingredients they can't have.
What does special diet mean?
That means that I accommodate dietary restrictions that are multifaceted.
Okay.
So just being gluten-free is too easy.
Okay.
You've got to be gluten-free and soy-free and dairy-free, but make me a pizza and have it taste like pizza.
That's so cool to be able to have that challenge too, to think about okay, how.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna heat butter, a little bit of water, and sugar.
Ooh, this is so creamy. It's somewhere between guacamole and a smoothie.
Yes, so you can see how much of it there is. It's basically going to provide the bulk of the recipe.
Did you always know that you were gonna get into food professionally?
No, I never planned on it. And I had my first chef job when I was 19. And after I did that, I was like, well, I'd never do that again because I'm gonna be a writer. It's been now on and off for 23 years.
Oh my God.
That I just sort of always land back in a kitchen. And after I had a couple different chronic illnesses, so I was sick from 30 to 35. And when I got better and was good to go, part of the world again, I sort of realized that something about the intersection of food and wellness and writing felt really purposeful for me. Mm-hmm. And that because I clearly had a propensity for getting better from strange and complicated diseases, I could probably help other people.
Yeah, I feel like that's when you know it's meant to be.
Yes.
It just keeps creeping back in.
You don't have a choice but to keep doing it, exactly.
What was that first experience where you were cooking for other people?
It was amazing. I was 19 and I had moved out and I was doing a lot of baking where I would call my mom to ask her how to make something. Mm-hmm. Hi, how do I make muffins? And she would tell me over the phone and I would make them and be really happy that I did, but then I would have all this stuff on hand. So I started having this really large influx of baked goods and looking for people to give them away to. And I had a professor I was friends with who I'd connected with, and I started giving him baked goods. And he told me that his wife was opening a bookstore and creativity center, and they were looking for volunteers. And since I love to read, I thought it would be just really awesome to volunteer at the bookstore. So I went to this meeting for volunteers, and while I was there, they said, we have this commercial kitchen in this space, and we'd love to use it. Does anyone do food? And I raised my like very shy 19-year-old hand and I was like, I make some stuff. And my professor friend shouted, she makes chocolate cake out of garbanzo beans. Because like in 1995, that was not normal. And so they basically asked me what I would do to cater an event for like 35 people. And my answer was math. Because I had no idea how to cook for 35 people. But I did it and it worked out, and they ended up opening a cafe daily where I would make a soup, a salad, an entree, and sometimes a dessert. And it was buffet style. It was like the mid-90s, they charged $5. And people would just come from that town, and I was suddenly the chef of this restaurant.
Oh my gosh.
For like a couple of years. We have chocolate, butter, sugar, melty goodness.
OMG.
So this all goes in there. Vanilla, baking soda.
Wow, this really is so easy.
Yeah, and then some extra cocoa powder. Wow. And we use about a tablespoon of flour. This is wheat flour. I often will do it with coconut flour, anything else. It just provides an extra little bit of binding. So this is my favorite part. There's something about like the green and the brown together that I just find so fun.
How did your mom's cooking inspire you?
I think getting to experience what it's like to have things so homemade without knowing how unusual it was. You don't know different than your own experience.
Yeah.
And as I grew up and discovered how unique my experience was, it became very inspirational.
Yeah.
So the only difference with these and normal brownies from this point on is that because they're so fudgy and there's no flour, they do better being sliced once cooled.
What was it like thinking, oh, I'm gonna be a writer, and then you like kept ending up in the kitchen? What was it like having that like shift?
I thought that I just failed at writing for a living. Until I hit a point in my chef career where people started asking me to develop recipes. And I was really into sort of self-selling, like, well, do you want me to write a head note for it? Do you want me to maybe write a whole article about it?
Yeah.
And thankfully, through opportunities of doing that, I was able to move into writing both about food and lifestyle and wellness and things that I am equally passionate about.
What were you writing about before?
I mostly just wrote poetry, and that's what I got a degree in. And like, no one's going to pay you for that for the most part, unless you're one of a very select few. But I would take any opportunity to do sort of like random writing work, like copywriting or anything that ever popped up, just to be doing something because it always felt so good. And now we're just gonna throw them in the oven.
Okay. Yeah, it's really incredible that like as you found yourself in the kitchen, your writing also found you too.
Yes. I think when you find your purpose, the world just sort of conspires to make it happen.
Totally.
And so when I came out of chronic illness saying I'm going to use food to help people feel better, it's just like opportunities created themselves out of the blue, and then writing came from that and has been, I think, the most helpful platform I could have because you can like pick it up and take it home with you.
Yeah, it's really incredible that like once you're like open to it, you just start seeing the openings and the opportunities everywhere.
Yes. While the brownies cook, we are going to begin making a cocktail that goes really well with them. It begins with a cocoa butter wash bourbon.
Oh.
So fat washing alcohol is something that is often done with either butter or bacon fat, which are both very, very delicious. But I have in the cocktail book that I wrote a couple different methods using ingredients that felt a little more accessible for people. So I use either coconut oil or cocoa butter. And cocoa butter is awesome because most people like chocolate. And even for the people who can't eat chocolate, for something like the caffeine, this is just the fat. So it's usually accessible for people.
So what happens with fat washing alcohol?
It is this just amazing process where you melt a fat, let it get to room temperature, and then combine it with a hard alcohol, shake it up, and let it hang out in the fridge for a day or two. The fat mostly leaves the liquid, but it still sort of leaves a lot of itself behind, and it basically turns booze into dessert. It's amazing. You're gonna taste it. It's like, it makes it silky smooth.
Wow.
So it takes the bite out of hard alcohol.
Wow.
Because the fat, like fat in general, coats your tongue when you consume it. So it does that, which like dulls the sharpness of alcohol. And then whatever flavor you add, like bacon or cocoa butter, it adds that into the alcohol.
Whoa, that's so cool.
So it's a very, very fun
Yeah.
thing to do that is not in any way like making the alcohol better for you or worse for you, just doing something interesting and different. And I love this for a number of drinks, but one that we're gonna make is called Valentine Moonshine. And it's sort of like flowers and chocolate and cherries, like all the things that you typically associate with Valentine's Day. I really have sort of strong feelings about Valentine's Day because when I was first out, it felt very weird and uncomfortable to go out on Valentine's Day as part of a queer couple. So this is one of many ways that I've chosen to just sort of take that back and make it more normal.
Yeah, and I also feel like going out on Valentine's Day, a lot of times they have those like set menus too. So it's also like an interesting thing to know that you're in this place and everyone is eating exactly the same thing and you're almost like on the same schedule as everyone.
Because they only have like 2 seatings.
Yeah, yeah, and it feels like very robotic and like mechanical, and it's more about efficiency.
Exactly. And so there's something to that with being part of a queer couple and sort of infiltrating that space. And now that's much more normal. But at the time, 15, 20 years ago, that felt kind of revolutionary.
Yeah.
That we were being part of that. And it's one of those things where you don't have to really do a lot to be political.
Yeah.
Sometimes your smallest actions actually are political, even if unintentionally. So then it's sort of, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
And how are you going to use that?
Yeah. How do you feel like your personal life has like been a political statement?
Oh, wow. So many ways. I think just walking out the door. I mean, you're sort of representing no matter what you do. And when you are not necessarily perceived as what you are, like not being visibly queer, it's an interesting experience because you never know how you're being seen.
Yeah.
So you have to do what you can to create your own reality because you can't trust other people to see you for you.
I totally relate to that. I was saying recently that, you know, when people look at me, I can't guess what they're going to perceive me as. And people have guessed every single race under the sun for me.
And been so convinced.
Yeah.
You are this.
Yeah.
Because I'm that.
Yeah, and it is an interesting experience navigating the world when you don't know what somebody is thinking about you. And it could be something completely different. And, you know, you could get a positive response from them, but it could, based off the way they perceive you, but something could also be really negative too.
This is melted, but then cooled a little bit because if it's too hot, you'll take the alcohol out of the alcohol. And that would really defeat the purpose. So we're just gonna mix them together. And naturally, fat and water separate. So we just wanna facilitate the process as much as possible before that happens to get it as incorporated as we can.
Give it a little shake.
Exactly.
Okay, this is the part where I can contribute.
And you can take any fat that is hard at fridge temperature and any hard alcohol. Wow. The combinations and possibilities are endless. We're gonna put it in the fridge and basically you leave it for a couple days and you just wanna shake it every 8 hours or so, as often as possible. So now that we have the makings for the cocktail ready, we're gonna take the brownies out.
Yay, they smell really good.
All nice and chocolatey. You can see
Oh my God.
crackled on top.
I mean, it looks like brownies to me.
Looks like brownies. They're gonna taste like brownies. We're just gonna let them come to room temperature and then throw them in the fridge so they can cool thoroughly. We have our cocoa butter washed bourbon. That is, as you can see, separated.
Wow.
Has been shaken a bunch. In order to make our drink, we're just gonna get the good stuff out.
What's that layer at the top?
That's the cocoa butter.
Okay.
So that stays behind, but you'll notice that the alcohol that comes out is a little bit more opaque than bourbon typically is.
Definitely.
And that's the little bit that gets left behind.
It's almost like the cocoa butter is like a filter.
Exactly. And then we're gonna make the cocktail, which is called Valentine Moonshine, and it's from my cocktail book, The Thinking Girl's Guide to Drinking, which is sort of healthier takes on cocktails and mocktails without being like health food tasting in any way.
So then what do you do with that?
It's leftover. You could melt it down and do this whole thing again. You wouldn't want to cook with it because it's fat that still now has some amount of water mixed in with it. so it wouldn't behave like normal, but you can taste this. And keep in mind, this is straight bourbon.
Whoa.
But like, it doesn't taste
Yeah.
like straight bourbon.
Yeah, that's so cool.
The fun part.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're putting it in a shaker.
Yeah, with hibiscus liqueur and Luxardo cherry juice and some chocolate bitters. We're gonna shake it up and then we're gonna add some bubbly water.
What has it been like being a private chef for people?
It has been a very, I think, unique opportunity to be in the places I have and cooked for the people I have. I've been really fortunate in working with some very amazing people and seeing how usually I'm hired for health goals. So it's typically a project and I help someone conceive or lose weight or get over an illness. I think it's a lens that you don't normally get into people's lives, especially I used to do a lot of plated work. Now I do more cooking at home and sending it to people. But in doing plated work, like everything happens in the kitchen. I used to, and I still do, I never would actually do it, but I've had this book idea called I've Been in Your Kitchen.
Oh my God.
That's just all the things I've heard unintentionally over the years.
Oh my God, like what?
Well, I mean, I can't, that's why I'm not writing the book. Because I can't actually say what any of those things are.
Well, now I want to know.
But the most dramatic things and the most private conversations in homes tend to happen in the kitchen.
True.
We are gonna shake this up. You can have the honors.
Okay. My job today is shaking it up.
Things need to be shaken up. That is hugely important. Basically, when you're shaking a cocktail, you want to do it until everything feels very cold on the outside.
Definitely feels cold. How have you noticed that like people's needs have been like shifting over the years? Have you noticed just like general kind of like trends that happen?
Definitely, we are so much more culturally aware of what we are eating than we used to be. It used to be really rare for people to be educated about food and nutrition, and now it's so much more commonplace, which is wonderful, as well it should be. It's still, a lot of people don't have access to it, which is why, as much as I've done like some very elite work, when people ask me what I'm most proud of, it's often things like my books being available in libraries or recipe articles, easy to find online, full of big box grocery store ingredients. Seeing the dichotomy between what people have access to and what they don't has been really big for me to try and help people have more access to nutrition, because people with money tend to have access to education, period, compared to people without.
Totally. And food seems like such a basic thing that people need, and to think that real food is inaccessible to so many people just seems ridiculous.
We're topping it with some very flavored bubbly water.
Oh my gosh, this like went
And
through
there
a
we go.
complete transformation.
Yes. These are all ready to go, but why not gild the lily?
Oh my
with a nice
gosh,
cherry on top.
I love it.
Brownies are ready, and we're gonna get them out of the fridge to slice up.
Okay. Oh my God, this is very exciting.
Gonna flip them over. Hope for the best. Yay!
Oh my God, that was
always
perfect.
It's like always one of the most stressful moments. You cut these any way you like because they are pretty fudgy and dense. They tend to go a little smaller. You can see
Oh my
there's
God.
some serious gooiness.
Yeah, you're not kidding when you say fudgy. Oh my gosh, yum.
You can see the denseness and the moistness, and that is what the avocado is contributing.
Amazing.
Is like this intensity.
I can't wait to eat that. Cheers. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Whoa, that's tasty.
It's like Valentines in a glass.
It really is. Wow, I love that.
Thank you.
That's really nice. And we have the brownie.
It's time.
It's time for the
See what you
brownie.
think.
Okay, I'm gonna take a bite. I feel the fudginess. Oh my God.
I've never gone back to normal brownies since this.
Amazing. You have written books before, you're a writer, and you actually have a new book out.
I do. It just came out recently, and it is my first foray away from cookbooks, which I was really excited for. It has recipes after all the other stuff.
Oh, cool.
It's called How to Be Well When You're Not. And my client, Pink, wrote the foreword.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was really, really sweet of her. We had a very wonderful experience working together.
What is kind of like the story of the book?
So I spent 5 years laid up with 2 different illnesses, and I had a lot of difficulty finding that positive mindset that everyone says you have to find in order to get better. And you do. Your chances scientifically of getting better from anything are improved if you feel better in your head. But no one tells you how to do that. So it's full of free and easy tips and tools so that in any given moment, you can feel better than you did. It helps you get that wellness positive mindset. It's not that hard, but it's hard to find how to do that. So I really just am hoping that people won't have to go through what I went through in terms of spending years being essentially hopeless. Because both illnesses, doctors told me I was not going to recover. And I went on to make a full recovery from each holistically on my own without doctors.
Wow.
So no matter what people are experiencing, whether it's a major chronic illness or just feeling the effects of aging and not really knowing how to do that in a way that, because aging can be an incredible, wonderful thing, but it can also be like horrible and miserable.
Yeah.
So it's full of tools to help people find a more positive mindset so that you're well even when you're not.
I love that. I mean, I just turned 30 and I feel like there are changes that I'm noticing in my body, and it's not necessarily like this like horrible thing, but I am like aware, oh, like this thing that I used to do when I was younger, like doesn't serve me now, and I have to like shift things a little bit. So I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, how you deal with that positively makes all the difference.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been such a pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, this drink is beautiful. These brownies are amazing. I feel like I've learned so much today.
Oh, thank you.
You've just been so wonderful.
Thank you.